Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni is questioning recent U.S. sanctions imposed on former Inspector General of Police Edward Kayihura, widely known as Kale Kayihura. He has criticized elements from the opposition, saying the excitement over the news is misplaced. The United States imposed sanctions on the former police boss last week, accusing him of human rights violations and engaging in corruption during his tenure between 2005 and 2018. Reacting to the news, he dismissed the allegations as baseless, unverified, and outrageous. It should be noted that Kale Kayihura is currently under house arrest for committing crimes against the state. President Museveni has said Kayihura's alleged offences will be handled in Uganda. The sanctions are widely seen as sending a strong message to Museveni about alleged corruption and rights violations in the country.
And to talk more about it, we're joined by Maria Burnett, a lawyer at a human rights NGO in New York. Good morning, Maria, and welcome to the program. So tell us, how far could these sanctions go against General Kale Kayihura?
Well, the mechanism is a very serious mechanism. It's a law that was passed a few years ago, but didn't actually come into force until about 2016. And at this point, it means that it's being used against those who are alleged to be responsible for serious human rights abuses, such as torture and extrajudicial killings, or serious corruption, or both. And there is quite a long list of people who have been sanctioned under this mechanism by the United States. There are not many Africans, and there are no Ugandans other than General Kayihura. So it is certainly an instrument that we haven't seen used very much by the United States against Africans. And it is a very serious mechanism. It certainly can have a very significant impact on the person, but obviously it matters a bit how much they would have wanted to travel or how much of their financial assets is wound up in international financial institutions.
And Maria, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, in a statement on Sunday, referred to Kayihura's crimes cited by the U.S. authorities as small mistakes. For the benefit of our international audience, how serious are the human rights violations and corruption allegations against Kayihura?
Well, I was with Human Rights Watch for over a decade documenting human rights abuses in Uganda. And in that time, General Kayihura was the chief of police almost the entire time. He came to the leadership position in 2005, and he was removed from that position in 2018. And there's simply no doubt that there were very serious human rights abuses committed by Uganda's police force and by extra-legal groups of individuals who were working under the command of General Kayihura. The kinds of abuses that I documented firsthand myself, hundreds of cases of torture, many cases of extrajudicial killings. I think the issues around corruption, I have not investigated as much myself, but certainly we had many, many cases where victims of human rights abuses and witnesses to human rights abuses were offered payment to stay silent or to go away and not seek justice through the courts or through the Human Rights Commission. So there's significant evidence that General Kayihura not only was in charge when abuses were committed, but that he knew that the abuses were going on and that he did not seek to carry out any kind of accountability against anyone in his command who had carried out torture or extrajudicial killings. So the evidence is, I think, extremely clear in his case. One can question why General Kayihura in Uganda, as opposed to many other different people around the world who are obviously complicit in human rights abuses. But in his case, I think the evidence is very clear. These are not small mistakes. This was systematic torture and extrajudicial killings in many cases over many years.
Maria,
Ugandan
security forces are very often accused of using extreme violence. Do you think that these American sanctions against the general could change the situation within the army and make them correct their actions?
Well, I think the best case scenario is that these sanction regime, and it's worth pointing out, the United States is not the only country that has such a mechanism in place. Several European countries have it as well. These kinds of sanctions regimes can ideally send a message to others in government or security services that their actions can lead to direct consequences for them, can inhibit their ability to travel, to carry out business around the world. So I think it's, somewhat unlikely that this will end up having a direct impact on the Ugandan government's choice to bring any kind of extra criminal charges against General Kayihura for abuses that took place under his command. But will this send a message to others in the Ugandan police force or in the Ugandan military that the world is watching and that this can have a direct impact on you, no matter what people in government may ask you to do? Your own life and your own family's ability to travel and carry out their financial dealings can be directly impacted. Certainly, I think that's the best case scenario from a sanctions regime such as this one.
Well, that's all we have time for this morning, Maria. Thank you so much for answering our questions. Maria Burnett, human rights lawyer based in New York, the United States.
Away from Uganda to get at the news making headlines in other parts of the continent.